Welcome to Air Checks. Here is the continuation of Orson Welles and Hello Americans.
The Columbia Broadcasting System presents Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater in a special series of broadcasts about the other Americas. Hello, Americans. This is Orson Welles. It's 2 days after Christmas and a Sunday night at that. Do you feel as though your belt were trying to get a half Nelson on your waistline? Are you wondering where somebody who gave you something got it so you can take it back and exchange it for something you wanted instead? Has somebody in your household been heard to remark that it's been a nice Christmas, but she's glad it's over? Is your tree starting to shed? Yes? Yes. I don't care how many eggnogs you didn't have. You've got that Christmas hangover. Well, so have we. The incidents in the Mercury Theater of package tying thumb, Christmas tree decorating, back strain, and shopper's feet is just as great as in your family. Frankly, the script for this broadcast didn't exist until last night. We were all sitting around staring at each other, our eyes glazed with Christmas cheer, numbly wondering how to get started. And there was a knock at the door. That's the best way I know to start a story. We won't stop for sound effects because you can imagine it. That knock on the door. Somebody opened it, and in came Mr. Martin Stone. Mr. Stone is a big man, and his mouth had a place in it for a cigar, but the cigar wasn't there. He introduced himself, and we gave him a drink, and he told us this story. Now we're going to try to tell it to you, the way we heard it. The story needs a name, so we'll call this one The Bad Will Ambassador. Martin Stone. Thanks. Don't mind if I do. I'm an American representative of an export house with branches all over South America, Central America, Brazil, the Argentine, Venezuela, Peru, Puerto Rico, Mexico. Business is good. Could be better, but... Well, that's my business, to make it better. I didn't come here to talk about myself, though. I want to tell you... I'll tell you about him. Who? Don't ask me. Just let me tell you what happened. I can't even say exactly what he looked like. Smallish, yet he wasn't so small. He wasn't young. He wasn't old either. Oh, his voice. It was soft. Like a soft breeze. The kind of voice that makes you think of your own voice. Like you're talking too loud or too hard. Still don't know his name. I looked it up, but it wasn't in there. Guess it doesn't matter. Met him first in Buenos Aires about 10 days ago. I had everything planned. 8 days to finish up my business in South America and get back home in time for Christmas and JL's sales rally. Gotta plan things if you want to get them done. Yeah, reservations on Pan American right through from Argentina to New York City. Here, boy, grab these bags and weigh them. That's my plane.
Yes, sir. Well, Senor Stone, we've given you up for good.
Never give up Martin Stone till the plane leaves the ground.
Yes, senor.
Never missed a plane or a train in my life. No use putting that on the scales. Weighs 39 pounds and 14 ounces exactly. Well, what's wrong? Plane hasn't left, has it?
Mr. Stone, you see, we didn't think you were coming. And someone who has to get to Rio de Janeiro by tonight, well, we gave him your seat.
Your what?
Oh, we would not have done it, Mr. Stone, but he is going to have Christmas with his family.
I know.
He's only 9 years old, sir, and if he does not go on this plane, he will lose an entire...
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me you want me to give up my seat?
Oh, of course not, Mr. Stone. If you do not wish to, we told the dispatcher he is to take the little boy and his luggage off the plane. It will take only a moment.
Well, naturally, I hate to upset the youngster's plans, but after all, I got a little fellow of my own who's hard to just about break if his daddy isn't back home for Christmas.
Oh, that's quite all right, Mr. Stone.
Is that the youngster there?
Yes, Mr. Stone.
Hi there, youngster. No, I'm sorry to disappoint you. You understand English?
No, Mr. Stone. He speaks only Spanish and Portuguese.
Well, he's got plenty of time to get an education. Here, young man, You take this and buy yourself a pocket knife or a football or anything you want. Come on, won't bite you. Hey, what's wrong? That's when I first saw him. Standing there. Right in front of me.
You see, he's very young, and he would not understand.
Yes. It isn't my responsibility. An awful lot of kids in the world. Still, a man does hate to disappoint a kid, naturally.
Naturally.
Especially during the Christmas season.
It's a pity you will miss the Argentine Navidad.
Yes. Very interesting native customs out there. I don't know. Give me Christmas back home in the States. My name's Stone. Indestructo Toys and Novelties. Here's my card. Leaving on this plane?
No, I'm not.
Would you believe it? They don't even have Santa Claus in this country. You're not an Argentinian, are you?
No, I'm not.
Always got to be careful. Got to use tact down here in these countries. Never know who you're talking to. Like I was saying, now, what's Christmas without Santa Claus? No Santa, no presents, no fun.
Mr. Stone, here in the Argentine, the Christmas is very serious to them.
Yeah, but what about the kids, Mr. Senor? I didn't catch the name.
Senor, that is enough.
Glad to know you. Merry Christmas. Have a cigar. Say, I'm sorry I still didn't get that name.
Thank you, no, not at the moment.
You know how it is, so many strange names down here.
Just Senor.
Yeah, but Senor what?
In the United States, it is Mr.
Oh, yeah, sure. Mr. and Senor are the same thing. That's right. What are we talking about? Oh, yeah, it's kids. Christmas and kids. Kids, I got kids of my own and toys. Listen, we've got a line of toys.
In the Argentine, they have a gift day.
That's what I say. What can a kid get out of Christmas without Christmas presents?
La adoración de los reyes.
Beg your pardon?
Los reyes are the three kings.
Oh, yes. Oh, sure. Yeah, it's the wise men of the camel, sure. The adoration of the king. Somebody's telling me. Now, you take Ecuador. Up there, they got a whole different idea.
Oh, I've been there during Pascua.
Sure. To Ecuadorians do it right. Regular Christmas trees, presents, kids hang up their stockings just like in the States. And say, in Colombia. You know what the kids believe? Huh? They believe that Jesus himself brings them their gifts on Christmas Eve.
Imagine that.
And then there's Peru.
Oh, I've been in Peru for
Great
Christmas.
country.
In every home, they make a little altar.
Wonderful possibilities. I was in Lima once myself. Midnight mass. Interesting. Kids all cleaned up, bright as a dollar. Carry whistles and things to imitate the calls of animals and birds. I got a real boot out of it. You in business, senor?
Well, after a fashion.
Oh, what's your line?
I'm afraid my line is not so popular.
Salesmanship, senor. That's what does it. You gotta sell these people. Any people. Put a little chocolate on the pill. They'll eat it.
And after the chocolate wears off?
That was the first time I met him. I wished him a Merry Christmas and left him standing there. I got into Rio at 4:25, took a taxi to the hotel.
Good night, Senor Stone. Come back.
That's right.
We received your wire, Senor Stone. Your room is prepared for you.
Bright people, these Brazilians. They know the answers, speak English, got an army. Tell the boys to take my... You were standing there. Yeah. The senor. Stand there in the lobby with a smile on his face, though he'd been waiting for me. Expecting me.
You had a pleasant trip, I hope.
Look, how'd you get here ahead of me? There's only one plane. You weren't on it.
Tonight I have a surprise for you.
Surprise?
You're interested in Christmas celebrations, and so tonight, if you like, we are to be guests at a Brazilian home.
Put yourself in my place. I'm not superstitious. Don't believe in that stuff. He got around a little too much and too quick. What was he selling? Competition, maybe, looking up my lead. Why'd he want to take me to that Brazilian home? What did I do in a Brazilian? Oh, my firm does export in a wholesale house.
Senor Peixoto, may I present my friend, Mr. Stone of the United States of North America.
It is a great pleasure to make your acquaintance, Senor Stone.
How do you do?
I present my wife, Emilia.
Glad to meet you.
My son, Joao.
Hello.
Hello.
My little son, Jaime Franklin Delano Peixoto.
Hello.
Hello.
And my only daughter, Dalva.
It's a pleasure. Look here, I've got a pocket full of cigars on me. Havana's imported. Have one?
Obrigado.
You, Senor?
Thank you, no.
Kids sat around listening to this talk. You know how kids are. I decided I'd have to send them something. Electric train or football or something.
Mr. Stone, did you know about Misa de Gallo?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
In Brazil, Misa de Gallo comes after the Christmas Eve supper.
Yes, interesting.
It is when one day greets the next. The Mass of the Rooster. They come from far places in the country to attend its first Mass.
Yeah, I can imagine. Christmas Eve in the States, we stay up most of the night.
Then you know what it is to wait for the midnight. Here, perhaps it is different a little. The air is warm, the night is soft and full of flowers, and there are children around you, and the women. All are quiet, you understand. You can hear only the whisper of the silk in their dresses as they breathe. They are waiting.
Santa Claus?
The bells. The first bells that told the people the king was born. Always we remember back to that day. The bells.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we got bells in New York. Oh, that's up.
Some of our people say that God was not born in Bethlehem.
Huh?
I wonder, does anyone think that in New York?
Oh,
It is said that God was born here in Brazil, in the city of Bahia.
what makes them think that?
It gives them joy to think it.
Then Mr. Peixoto took me over to a cupboard where they had a presepio. Ever seen a presepio? It's a little tiny thing. You cup your hands around your eyes and look at it, and you might think it was real. You've seen something like it here in the States. 3 wise men, little tiny figures, the Holy Family, the Star of Bethlehem, and the animals looking in the manger. Got the whole thing. Regular miniature picture of the Nativity. Then Mrs. Peixoto and the little girl came in from the kitchen. Little girl was real cute.
In North America, they have them too, don't they? They have Sao Nicolau.
Have who in the United States, little girl?
Sao Nicolau.
Santa Claus?
No. Sao Nicolau. Only we call him Papa Noel, mostly.
Yes. What does your Papa Noel Sao Nicolau look like?
Oh, he's the most wonderful. He is fat and funny.
Oh.
And always he laughs.
Sure.
And he likes little girls and boys.
Santa Claus. That's Santa Claus.
No, Sao Nicolau.
Okay, Sao Nicolau. That's what I meant, little girl. Sao Nicolau.
Come, my friends. It is time for some dinner.
One chair at the table stood empty. I figured somebody in the family was dead and they'd set the place on a sentiment. On our way back to the hotel, I asked the Senor about it. Senor, somebody die in that family?
Oh, no, not recently. Did you like Senor Peixoto and his family?
Oh, yes. Of course I like him. That kid, that Dalva, some little girl. Say, that empty chair at the table.
Oh, that was for the 9-year-old son. They are very attached.
Too bad.
Yes. He couldn't get here because the plane was full yesterday in Buenos Aires.
We stood there for a second. White face poking a hole in the night. What could I do? A lot of kids in the world. Went up to my room and locked the door. I almost expected to see him sitting there waiting for me. 3 cups of coffee and a big breakfast later. Plane left at sunrise. I didn't talk to anybody. Got into Bel Em on time and spent the night at the airport drinking more coffee. I never spent a longer night than morning. In Mexico City the afternoon of the next day. Balbuena Airport. It's big and comfortable, and the runways look like arms stretched out to welcome you. I had to stop in Mexico City. I had business. Checked in the Reforma and took a hot bath. Did me good. Senor just disappeared. Made up for lost time 2 days before Christmas and the holidays had already been on for a week. They call it Posadas in Mexico. Giving presents for Christmas is still a new idea down there, like the bartender of the hotel said.
I wish my neighbor well. He wishes me well. These are our gifts.
He wished me a healthful Posadas. Nice guy. Posadas in Mexican means an inn, a kind of lodging house. People are always going somewhere during the Christmas holiday in Mexico. They visit from house to house. I decided to try and enter into the spirit, and I found a side street restaurant, picked a table in the corner, and sat down. It was the best meal I ever enjoyed. It felt like myself again. Fat man got up on a chair further down, was talking to everybody. He wasn't speaking English, but here's what he said.
Well, senores y señoras, we will be actors again. We will make again the Christmas party. You, dear, Papa, Fernando, you, and you. You will be the Holy Pilgrim, you and your family. Oh?
The Posadas, they call it. It's a regular custom like Christmas carols, only it's a play. They act it out. Every day for 9 days. All over Mexico.
Now we will need a very bad man. Bad enough to play the cruel-hearted innkeeper. I am such a one. But not bad enough. Who shall it be?
I would like very much to play this part.
Senor. It was him, all right. I wanted to get up and run. Run just as fast as I could. Stood beside the fat man and smiled at me through the smoke. He chased me all the way across South America. Hey, what do you want with me?
The play is beginning.
Mexicans started marching around with their lighted candles. Marching and singing in that funny way of theirs. Now they were knocking at the door of the inn. Knocking. The important part of the Posadas.
We have come up from Nazareth. Give us shelter in the name of mercy. My wife is great with child.
This is a place of business, not of mercy. The inn is full. There is no room for you. I wish I could do something, but I can't. After all...
Only you, Ruth. No more. Only protection from the night. I beg of you, for her sake. For Mary and her child to be.
Please, you embarrass me. There are other innkeepers. After all...
My wife.
Is she the only woman in this world who will give birth to a child?
O God, who in the coming to save us did not disdain an humble stable, grant that we may never close our hearts when thou art knocking, so that we may be received into thy night when our own hour comes.
The world is filled with children. I have children myself. I love children. But after all...
One of the women pulled her child away from him, pushed him behind her. But the senor was looking at me. When the play was over, he kept staring at me.
Oh, you did not know when we asked you to be innkeeper, senor. What a wonderful actor you are. And the words you said were so real, so terrible. It made a goose walk over my grave. You make a very good innkeeper, senor.
I once kept an inn.
The plane left for America the next morning at 7, and I was on it. A Cuban in the seat next to me. All he could talk about was Christmas in Havana.
It is a sad thing. I will not be home for the Christmas. We have big Christmas trees, you know, and beautiful fireworks, and presents for strange little children. Christmas in Cuba, we never forget any child.
The plane landed at LaGuardia Airport in New York on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve on Fifth Avenue. Nothing like it. Stores still open, streets jammed with last-minute shoppers, diamonds in the windows weeping to be bought, Santa Claus on every corner. Couple of minutes, I'd be sitting in my own chair by my own tree, playing with little Marty's electric train and listening to the radio. I turned down 50. You guessed it. Standing right in front of me.
Merry Christmas, Mr. Stone.
What do you want? You can't blame me. I had a right to that seat on the plane. What else could I do? What would anybody else have done? I got myself to think of, too. Is that wrong? My own kids. I had business, too. It might have meant my job. It isn't fair. I'm only human.
So was I once. Merry Christmas, Mr. Stone.
Then he wasn't there anymore. I don't know where he went to. I don't know where he came from. I can guess. But I wouldn't like to tell you what my guess is. You'd laugh, maybe. I don't want you to believe that he made a different man out of me. He didn't. Oh, I wrote out a bigger check for my charities this year, more than I could afford. But he thinks all my money is less than I can afford. Well, I've given up my overcoat to the newsboy down there in the street. He'd say it wasn't enough. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, he'd tell you that they made fun of the man who was born on Christmas. He'd show you the place in the Bible where it says they mocked Jesus when they nailed him on the cross. Now, I say, and you say, everybody says that we ought to help our fellow man, do everything we can for our fellow man. But we all want something back. Money or love or happiness. Something. Fair trade or... Anyway, some kind of trade. That's only business. Business of life. Tell him that and he'd just look at you and say, Merry Christmas. You know what he'd mean? He'd mean that Christmas is the day when Jesus was born, who threw the money changers out of the temple. We admit we ought to do more, but we can't give everything. There's got to be a limit. Is there anybody on earth who doesn't set a limit to what he pays for the privilege of being alive? That innkeeper 2,000 years ago set a limit when he sent Mary away from the door. I set a limit when I didn't give my place to that kid who wanted to be home for Christmas. That was a pretty mean thing to do, all right. Just didn't think. A lot of other people maybe do the same thing. I want to know why somebody else didn't give up their place on the plane. That isn't any argument, I'll admit that. That's like saying somebody else will feed the poor. Somebody else will win the war. That's like saying, what does it matter what I do? It does matter. Everything I do matters. My opinion and what I do about it. My vote. My vote on everything. I matter. That's all there is to it.
The innkeeper said there was other inns and drove off the Mother of God. You know, an awful lot of people believe Jesus was God himself. Well, if he was, he came into the world as a man, so all men would see how terrible it is not to give shelter to all men. If he was God, he walked the earth as a man to show how much we all matter and to remind us that we were made in his image. Excuse me for going on like this. My friend, the senor, didn't say anything. He just looked at me. But I saw that look, and I just thought I ought to tell you what was in it. You're interested in Pan-American relations, and that just means human relations. It means loving your fellow man. Really, just that. Loving him. I have to tell you, I'm not going to go out and save souls and grow a halo, but I'm never going to think I love my fellow men just because my next door fellow man loves his fellow men less than I do. I'm not going to think I've got a generous heart because I know somebody that's meaner than I am. When Christmas comes along, at least I'm going to remember my friend, the senor. I'm going to try to remember what he came to remind me of. It has everything to do with everything. With Pan-Americanism and this war we're fighting, with just being born in the world. I've been up the length of this hemisphere since the holidays began, and I've heard the bells ringing in every land. Christmas bells. Ringing to cheer us up in North and South America. Peace on earth and goodwill toward men. We're fighting for peace on earth. Peace that'll really mean goodwill toward men. I don't know anything more cheerful than that. Generosity, mine works on a budget, so does yours. But we all celebrate Christmas because on that day somebody was born who set no limit to generosity. Gave everything. Even his life. A lot of Americans are giving up their lives tonight for their fellow man. All right, maybe I won't die for anybody. Maybe I'll just die. What happens in the meantime? What can I do? What can I do? If I ever hear myself saying that, I'll remember what my friend would say. He'd just look at me and say, Merry Christmas.
You have been listening to a special Christmas broadcast, the seventh in a series of programs about the other Americas, in which the Columbia Broadcasting System is presenting Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater. The Columbia Broadcasting System is the originator of South America's network of stations, La Cadena de las Americas, and provides daily programs to bring about a closer understanding among Americans everywhere. Mr. Welles has recently returned from an 8-month visit to the Latin American countries for the office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs. In the cast tonight, Norman Field played Mr. Peixoto, the Brazilian. Ted Reed was the American Airlines representative. Pedro de Cordova was the fat man in Mexico. John Tucker Battle was the Cuban. Hans Conried was the senor, and Martin Stone was played by Orson Welles. The original music was written by Lucien Moravec. Lud Gluskin conducted the orchestra. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. The Columbia Broadcasting System presents the Mercury Theater in a special series of broadcasts about the other Americas, produced by Orson Welles.
Hello, Americans. I stand here in a room of a building in this modern city, surrounded by streets and planning and the shadows of monuments. There are parks here, playgrounds and plazas, churches, cathedrals. holy air. There are marketplaces, laughter of people, electricity, motor cars, the singing of women. Age is here, and the wisdom of it. Time is here, in the stillness of the land. Time surrounds the city with huge hills, snow-covered, solemn. The conquistador lies below us now. Beneath the foundation of the buildings, beneath the stones of the city lies. All the weapons of slavery are dust in the earth. The chains, the lances, the cannon, the hard skulls, all are packed down by the weight and anger of centuries. There were graves in Mexico for tyrants then. There is room for graves still. He who comes to conquer this soil will learn to sleep under it forever. A mile from where I stand, the voice of Moctezuma spoke. His palace is now one side of the Plaza Mayor. In the subsoil of the Plaza Mayor, the Aztec calendar stone was found. Piedra del Sol, the stone of the sun. On its stone face are carved figures. They tell the time, the month, and year, frozen in the giant stillness of the past. They return us to the time, to the history, to the names, to the invisible dead. Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, the god, tall with white skin. He went among the people.
The land is sacred. It belongs to those who work it, who plant and reap, not to those. Slavery is ungodly. Each man is master of his own body. There is enough in this land for all. All should get it.
I, Emperor of the Aztecs, proclaim that Quetzalcoatl be punished. Find him!
The bearded one has fled. East he goes in his ship. He will be back. Will come by sea. He has set the date. He will return, bringing us freedom. The date is set.
The date was set. 1519. Almost on the day, a sail appeared in the east. The people quivered with hope. Moctezuma trembled on his throne in the mountains. The sail sagged on the mast, and a man set foot on Mexican soil. Cortez, Hernan Cortez. Gold lured him here to this very city, then called Tenochtitlan. And it stood in a clear lake like a jewel. And its temples were brighter than 100 suns. The lake is gone, and many temples are gone. But Moctezuma walks in the blood of Mexico, with all his sadness and suffering. Moctezuma, standing at the temple, facing the terrible god of war.
What do they bring, these white strangers who march westwards from the coast? Shall we sharpen our flints for them?
Only the wind answered. Only the silent air, with its wild omens of doom.
I speak to you, O God of peace. What do these strangers bring?
Do they tell you, Moctezuma? Do the gods warn of the Spaniards, the white men? Will you call out your warriors, O king?
Let them enter the city. Perhaps they are children of the sun. Bring them fruit and wine. They shall know we are not cannibals.
The causeway's open, and the Spaniard armor shines like the surface of the lake. The air is quiet on this day. Cortez, horseman, hero, advances to the center of the city. smiling.
Visitor, be welcome. This palace belongs to you and your brethren. Rest after your fatigue. Then I shall ask what brings you visiting to our island city.
I shall answer you now, great Montezuma. I have come to see so distinguished a person as yourself, to spread the wonders of your empire. We must prepare for a bold stroke. Montezuma's uneasy. He asks questions.
Shall we battle their army, then?
No, we strike where we'll dazzle them most. We strike at Montezuma, the heart of the body.
Do you dare, conquistador? A few hundred men, a known quantity of blood, to pit against these millions?
I tell you, Montezuma, this is no time to seek counsel from the stars. These men are not gods. They walk as men. They can die as men.
Too late. Too late. The Spaniards strike swiftly. The great Moctezuma, whom only the air dared touch, is learning the logic of change. Speak, O king, for they have defiled you. They have struck at the hand of friendship. This very moment they run through the temples, looting and burning. The civilized man has come bearing gifts, Moctezuma. The Eastern world has come to save you. They prod you to the window. They have a knife at your back, O Emperor. Your people are below, impatient, deadly.
Speak, Montezuma. Tell them to lay down their arms, or you die.
Be tall at the window. Be strong. Be greater than these conquerors. Below, the Aztecs sound like a burning forest. They think you betrayed them. They throw stones. Be strong, Moctezuma. For the arrows are on their way, dipped in their anger. Arrows for your heart. The blood is out. It falls. The empire bleeds. So, Cortez, is your triumph here? You're far from Cuba now, or the sea. You're in a city on a lake, and the causeways bristle with men. Mexico waits for you, conquistadores. Listen, on the open causeways they fought. The Spaniard hacking his way through, the bridges pulled down. The Aztecs dragging the riders down to the water. And they fought on the bridges and under. Fought with the fury of tigers. The men from the east and these tough warriors. And the wind, heavy with the odor of blood. There was no surrender. There was death and pestilence. But there was no surrender. There was ruin and desolation. And a forest of dead covered the Valley of Mexico. In the history of conquest, as Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Hitler, and the rest are called great, so Cortez was great. No adventurer was ever more daring. He burnt the ships that brought his little army from Cuba so no man of his could turn back. A handful, stifling in rusty armor, they braved strange mountains, terrible jungles, and lived to assassinate a civilization. The Aztecs fell before the gun and the horse, and the slave empire of Moctezuma joined the dust of empires. So the Spaniard raped Indian Mexico and held it in chains for 3 centuries. Mexicans won back Mexico in the end. But the Spaniards came again. This time, a joke of history by invitation.
Another shipload of Spaniards has come. Over 2,000 in one ship. Your grandfather is sleeping.
I'm not sleeping! What is this about 2,000 in one ship? Don't try to hide it from me, I know. Mexico's been invaded again.
No, Grandfather, you don't understand.
Someone fetch me my rifle.
Grandfather,
I can shoot from the window.
These people are not our enemies. They've been fighting a civil war in Spain.
I know that. You think I'm a fool?
The loyalists have been defeated, Grandfather, and we're offering them a home here in Mexico.
Spaniard's a Spaniard.
No, Grandfather, a Spaniard's a man. And there are 2 kinds of men in the world. Those who march forward and those who march backward.
I'm 86 years old. That's the first time in 86 years I've ever heard a member of my family say anything that made sense. Somebody fetch me a glass of wine!
Once again, the Spaniard invades the Mexican soil. But this time he does not bring his swords and cannon.
I come from Guernica, the holy city of Spain. Hitler and Franco destroyed our city, and now I am here.
What work do you do?
I teach Mexico how we make wine in Catalonia.
I am from Barcelona. I play the violin in the Orquesta Sinfónica Nacional. I used to practice medicine in Madrid. I practice medicine in Mexico City now.
I was a teacher in a Spanish university. Today, I teach here in Mexico.
I'm an artist, senor. A ham artist.
A ham artist? That's one thing we never admit back in the States.
Oh, see, ham artist. I teach Mexico a fine way to cure hams. Food, hams. I've brought what I know. I've brought, too, my hatred for fascism.
That hatred is shared by your adopted country, senor. By the people, by 18 million of them, by the workers and their unions, the men and women of professions, the musicians, the painters. All share your hatred of tyranny, your love of freedom. You know, and Mexicans know, that freedom is a prize hard won and easily lost. You know and Mexicans know that so long as somewhere freedom does not live, free men must die for it. For 300 years after Cortez, Mexico bowed her head. Then the bones of her ancestors stirred. The Indian blood, the peasant anger stirred again. And from the south, the grito de Dolores, the cry of 50,000 peasant voices, thundered their anger against the Mexican skies. Father Miguel Hidalgo, obscure parish priest, the father of Mexican independence.
We are resolved to sustain man's inalienable rights. We will sustain these rights by letting rivers of blood, if necessary.
Rivers of blood did flow, but they left a brief red stain on a conscience of a people. And from his prison cell, the captive priest put by his beads and spoke to the sons of men.
O ye who inhabit the earth, be my witness. I call you to behold the crimes which have been here perpetrated, and in my deep grief, call the whole world to see for itself the pain which is here in my land.
Even before the echoes of Hidalgo's lament had died away, a new leader had arisen, a young guerrilla warrior, Jose Maria Morelos. Hidalgo was executed, but over the crash of the rifles, Morelos hurled the people's defiance.
America is declared independent of Spain or any other foreign power.
The seed was strong, and the soil was rich. Another man walked into Mexico. No conquistador, no fiery rider, no great king or his power behind him, but the people's power, Mexico's power, Benito Juarez. And in this city, in the Alameda, a monument stands for this man. And along the Avenida Juarez, his ghost still walks. This time the conquistador was within, and the people closed their terrible ring, and Emperor Maximilian learned what Cortez did. The soil of Mexico has room for tyrants. Centuries of room. This man Juarez, this lawyer with craggy face and stovepipe hat, Lincoln of the lower continent, what fire burned in his silent eyes?
These hands are hands of a peasant. His face has known a whip. The back, too, is bent. In school, the Spanish gentlemen turned their backs as if my Indian face was a disease. I am not bitter. I am ashamed for Mexico.
Lawyer Juarez to Governor Juarez. With the wind of war rising among his people, poverty's war, And Juarez walked through village and city, searching, keeping his faith with the people, taking his strength from the people. For he was one of them. The poor, the proud.
Why are the workers on the road chained? Why are the workers in the mines chained?
You see, senor, there are reasons. Besides, they are happier that way.
So, a Mexican is happier in chains. You think so? Soon you shall hear a noise, senor, greater than thunder. It will be the chains breaking.
Juarez waits for the hour to strike. Waits like a boatman for the tide. Listens to the stirrings of the people. Juarez could wait. His people had waited for centuries. There was strength in waiting, and the moment had come. Juarez, in exile, penniless, leaves his rooming house in New Orleans. Alone, he returns to Mexico, the center of flame. He walks through the jungles alone in his black coat to meet his army. Walking with the strength of hills. Walking with the wheel of history. By foot, by ship. Alone he comes. Welcome home, Juarez. For God and liberty. The people rise. The people wake at last. They converge toward the angry cities. The fishermen with their shining knives. The sowers of corn and cane. Farmers with scythes, the straight and the bent. From Indian towns and Spaniard towns they came, giving their blood. And blood soaked the dry earth. And man marched towards the dream of equity. Then it was Presidente Juarez, speaking to the ambassador of France.
You threaten me with this Maximilian. If he has landed on our coast, as you say, with Napoleon's army, tell him this. The people of the Americas know well how to receive conquerors. Tell him there is room for one more grave in Mexico.
Maximilian stands on the Hill of Bells in Cerro de las Campañas on this cool morning of June 17th, 1867. Facing his appointed rifles. Not all his royal friends could save him. Not all the voices of the sovereign kingdoms who came to plead for him. Juarez listened to the voices as they spoke. Then Juarez spoke.
Maximilian must die, senores. Not for revenge, no, not for that. He dies because he is a sign of tyranny. Mexico says to the world, know that as Maximilian dies, so dies his dream and the danger of it. The people have spoken.
After Juarez, the scene darkens in Mexico. And to Porfirio Diaz, tyrant.
Emiliano, the food is on the table. Why do you sit there in the dark like a frightened wolf? Will you answer me when I ask you a question?
I'm not hungry.
Then you are sick.
No.
Don't turn your head away. Look at me toward the light. Who did that to you?
A Rurale.
With his horsewhip?
Yes.
What have you to do with Rurales?
I was at the farm of Tio Badillo when the Rurales came to take the land.
What did you do?
I threw a stone at a Rurale.
That was a wicked thing to do.
It was more wicked for the Rurales to take the land of Tio Badillo. The land of Tio Badillo is part of the Ejido.
The police of Diaz do not recognize the common land.
I think President Diaz is a thief.
That is a dangerous thought.
I have thought that thought since I was 7.
Oh, an old thought, eh? 2 years old.
Yes.
And what will you think when you're 19?
I think I will kill many Rurales. and maybe even President Diaz himself.
I think you will not live to be a man if you speak those thoughts aloud. Do you understand?
But I can speak my thoughts to you.
Yes. Yes, you can always speak your thoughts to me when we are alone and the door is closed. Now eat your supper. And let us hear no more of your thoughts until you are a man. A strong man. And to be strong, you must eat.
I will eat and I will grow strong. And someday the rurales will run like chickens when they hear the name Emiliano Zapata.
In my own office, without an appointment, without any warning, this flea-bitten, ragged, stinking crowd of peasants.
Bandits.
Bandits, worse. Crowd of illiterate villagers who wanted to take action against the hacendados, claiming they were stealing their land.
Such claims are common.
The leader of these peasants...
Did I know Emiliano Zapata?
Yes, well, he had very little to say when I offered to call the police. Then they went quietly enough. They have no appetite for the rurales.
They think because they were born on the land that it is theirs. The next thing you know, the parrots will be flying in from the jungles and claiming the mahogany trees are theirs because they were born in them. A parrot can talk, too, you know.
Emiliano, I have come from the village. They have posted a paper about you in the Plaza de Armas.
What does it say?
You are banished from the state of Morelos. And you are not permitted to return, on pain of death.
They've made me an outlaw. Very well. Others will join us. There are still men in Mexico who do not love a dictator.
Zapata's white horse pounded like a war drum through the villages. His cry of land and freedom rallied a mighty army. Diaz died, and the rich landowners replaced him with Madero.
I aren't prepared to grant you full amnesty, Zapata. More than that, I'm prepared to give you an estate of 150,000 acres.
Have you not heard that I'm fighting to restore the land to the people?
Yes, I have heard.
I'm fighting for everyone. Men of Mexico, it is better to die on your feet than to live on your knees.
There are those in the state of Morelos today who will tell you that the body publicly exhibited on April 10th, 1919, was not Zapata, but a wax figure.
Zapata is not dead, senor. He still rides. The thunder of his horse's hoof shakes the world. He is finishing what he started. Every man will have his own foot of land, and there will be no hungry child anywhere, and the buzzards who live on death will die of starvation.
The people march, asking questions.
The land is poor.
There's no water for the soil.
Can we grow food from stone?
We have many oil wells, true, but where's work for us?
Our children die of disease.
Why must that be?
There are no schools.
Must our children not be able to write their names?
They say we are a rich land. Rich for whom? Tell me that.
Asking, searching, taking on the democratic stature. Somebody said Mexico is the land of mañana. Mañana means tomorrow. And tomorrow in Mexico is no longer an excuse. Tomorrow is more now than a promise. Here is a land with the longest yesterday in the New World. And no American nation has so advanced in the third decade of our century. No American people are more solemnly consecrated to the future.
Viva la revolución!
Revolution again? Yes. This time it's the National Revolutionary Party, the PNR, the CTM, the Confederation of Mexican Workers. We've arrived at the year 1934. They're cheering the new presidente, Cardenas, elected by the will of the majority.
¡Viva Cardenas! ¡Soldado de familia Frank! ¡Abajo el fascismo!
In 1910, there were 700 schools in Mexico, all in cities and towns. There were no schools for the children of peasants. By 1935, in the country, in the farm and cattle lands, there were 20,000 schools. The art of Mexico and Mexico's artists. Aztec and Mayan art, colonial, popular, tradition and progress. Orozco, Rivera, Siqueiros, more, many more. Great painting on public walls, murals, art for everybody, and music for everybody. Rivertos, Chavez, and the Orchestra Sinfónico Nacional. Popular music, folk music, mariachis, marimba bands, rancheros, boleros, the lovely ballads of the jungles, the plains, the mountains. Song and, while we're about it, wine and women. Say nothing of food. I'd like to do a whole series of broadcasts on Mexican cooking. Listen, you can hear the great bell of the cathedral. The largest bell on our continent. There's so many things I wish I had the time to talk about today. The street in honor of Louis Pasteur, the Washington Monument here, the Don Quixote Fountain, the auto trailer camp, nightclubs, museums, cathedrals, the stadium, bullfights. Another time I'm going to tell you about Mexico's new president, Camacho, and Padilla's magnificent achievement at the Pan American Conference in Rio. And now it's time to say goodbye. To leave you with a message from the Republic of Mexico.
We declare the sincere friendship of the workers and the people of Latin America with the great people of the United States. We defend the same cause, the cause of the people. For this cause, we continue united, and we will be courageous in the future as we have been in the past. Our flag is the Atlantic Charter. Our slogan, the inviolate right of self-determination. Liberty for each nation of the world. Progress for the working people everywhere. Liberation of all mankind.
You have been listening to the 8th in a series of programs about the other Americas, in which the Columbia Broadcasting System is presenting Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater. The Columbia Broadcasting System is the originator of South America's network of stations, La Cadena de las Americas. In the Southern Hemisphere, as well as in this hemisphere, CBS provides daily programs of news, entertainment, and recreation to bring about a closer understanding among Americans everywhere. Next week, the 9th program in this series will be brought to you by Orson Welles. Mr. Welles has recently returned from an 8-month visit to the Latin American countries for the office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs. In the cast tonight, Laird Tregar was Montezuma, Hans Conried was Cortez, Ray Collins was Juarez, Lou Merrill Zapata, and Agnes Moorehead, Zapata's mother. Original music tonight was composed by Lucien Moravec and directed by Lud Buskin. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Beg your pardon.
Well, go on.
Do I know you?
Not intimately, I think.
Well, who are you?
A horseman. You've seen horses.
Oh, well, of course. That is, but
this is a horse. I am a horseman. After all, a horse should be a welcome figure to a party. A little lecture on food. Some people eat horses.
In a pinch, yes.
Yes. Do you mind if I'm your guest tonight?
Not at all.
Do you mind if I have certain useful contributions to make to your program?
Do you know anything about food from the Americas?
I know everything about food. Everywhere.
Your horse evidently doesn't. He's all ribs.
I do not belong to the breed that fattens animals for the slaughter and for the gullets of men. I interrupt your story. Do go on.
I intended to. Food. Subsistence and existence.
Yes?
Where there was the promise of food, men went. Where there was grass, tribes, nations, civilization went to feed their livestock, that their livestock might feed them. The rat and the ant have survived because they have known how, somehow, always to have food.
The rat and the ant and man. Superlatively inspiring thoughts. But go on.
When the rat and the ant compose a symphony or give testimony to God, let me know, man on horseback.
Go on.
Ever since the beginnings of man, his struggle for subsistence has been the story of his life.
Interesting.
His war and his peace, his hate and his love, his passions and his ideals. All is food.
Man, the potent lord of creation, who lives only to eat.
History and scriptures are full of the literature of meat and bread and the pitcher.
And behold, Pharaoh did have a dream. He stood by the river, and there came out of the river 7 kine, well-favored and fat-fleshed, and they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, out of the river, and the ill-favored and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the well-favored and fat kine. And he sent for Joseph out of his dungeon, and Joseph told Pharaoh, "This is the why-for of your dream. There shall be 7 years of great plenty in Egypt, but afterwards there shall be 7 years of hunger in the land, and the plenty will be forgotten, and hunger shall consume the land." And Joseph told Pharaoh to store up his food in times of plenty, that there should be food enough in the lean years. The devil can quote scriptures. Why can't I?
Today, the world is at war. There is plenty where the torch is not put to the granaries in the fields. There is hunger where the armies, like locusts, swarm over the tortured lands. Here in the Americas, the torch of war is not yet laid to the fields and bins and granaries. Can America, can this hemisphere alone feed its own and feed a world besides?
No. Yes.
Will we supply the world with food when it is hungry?
Yes. Fool.
And is it hungry now?
It starves.
Then there will be food.
You need ships to carry food.
We'll have the ships.
They will be sunk.
We'll sink the sinkers. There'll be other ships.
And where, tell me, is all this wealth of provender? All this food for yourself and for the rest of the world? Where is so much in the root and on the stalk and on the hoof?
We have some. We have much.
And you, my optimistic friend, who are you?
I am a gaucho, and I am only one of many, and there are many such many. I come from the great plains of the Argentine, from the wide pampas. A cowboy, you would say, up here?
I wouldn't.
No, not you, perhaps, whoever you are, but the other one, the American, yes?
Yes, my friend, I would. Ladies and gentlemen, a gaucho, a cowboy, if you please, from the plains of South America. The finest and beefiest beef on earth comes from those plains.
It goes out in ships with ice, how you call it?
Refrigerated.
Yes, and in cans, to where the armies are spread across the world. With the United States, with Mexico, with Uruguay, we have beef enough to feed the world.
From the pampas to the huge slaughterhouses goes the beef, then to be frozen and packed or tinned, and into the ships, fanning out across the world, across the oceans, across the equator, past Iceland, joining the quiet convoy.
Watch out! Submarines.
Cruising the deadly ocean into the cold, the icy waters of the northern seas. Archangel.
Watch out, you fools! Dive bomber!
Past submarine, past bomber and surface raider, Murmansk.
You can't make it. The sea is sown with mines.
Murmansk, and we're in, boys. We're in with beef from the Argentine.
The harbor is mined, I tell you. The sky is full of ruin.
Trucks, the railroad, taking the cargo, taking the beef of the Argentine for the sinew of the Russian bear. Food, the ultimate fuel of the offensive. The army again, marching on its stomach, while the people march on their backbone, their nerve, and their knowledge that somewhere on the high seas the food is coming. Russia, Britain, China, Greece. Greece?
We perish in our homes. We stiffen by the side of the load. Our eyes grow large and staring. And our ribs are harps for death to play upon.
Our ribs are harps for death to play upon. A skillful figure of speech inviting a sharp, clear picture of the truth. These Greeks are not bad. No, they're not bad at all. Making such words with hunger full upon them. A worthy race. Descended from the gods indeed. Bravo, brave Greece.
I do not care about the speeches that I make, except the world must listen and help us. Help. We cannot feed upon our bravery.
Greece. Breakfast is warm water. Cold water would be torment to shrunken stomachs. Luncheon? Some blades of selected weeds and grasses, some stolen rancid oil. Dinner?
A few olives, if one has been lucky. And a spoonful of wheat flour.
No. Beautiful for spacious skies. Amber waves of grain.
America. Wheat. Bread. Or we die.
But the ships? There are no ships.
There are ships.
Not enough.
For that, yes. There must be.
Do you want your own people to go hungry?
There is enough for all.
Have I said you were a fool?
Once, I think.
You are twice a fool.
Because I say there is enough to eat for all. Americans, north and south and central, tell this stranger, tell this rider of a lean horse, what you have to give and of your will to give.
Talk about Argentina. You ought to have a look at Texas.
American cowpuncher. Slightly different in dress from our friend the gaucho, but up to the same game with just about the same instruments. Rising with the sun, resting with the cattle, safely corralled for the night. Not before. Using his rope like an artist, calling it a lasso.
Or a riata, short for lariata, which is where we get the word lariat. But I prefer a rope. It's easier.
Our rope we call the boladero.
I still like plain rope. It's easier.
Rope, riata, boladero. Its aim is the same. Gaucho, vaquero, cowboy. The game is the same. To feed the world. And panhandle or pampas, the business is beef.
More beef than you can count from now to the low Sierras.
Cattle that move like a dark ocean across the prairies. Cattle as far as the eye can see. Millions of head. The gaucho, under the stars of the pampas, riding the range, seeing to the wire. Cowboy in America, riding the range, seeing to the wire. Singing his melancholy song, full of contentment, full of the doing of his appointed job. Let's talk about coffee now. Not exactly a food, but closer to it than a good after-dinner cigar, which makes a good dinner taste better and digest better, more than likely.
There is more coffee in Brazil than the world can use. Hills of coffee, slopes full of the coffee plants, mountains of coffee beans.
Coffee. Hot and piping. To warm the heart and lift up the spirit. The worker's wine. The soldier's companion. Across the vast sweep of the hemisphere, the farmlands lie open to the mercy or the malice of the zones. In Manitoba, Canada, the farmer frowns at a head of wheat.
Rust. I should have burned those barberry bushes earlier. That's what spreads the rust.
In the dry, difficult plateau of Mexico, the humble farmer rests on his worn spade. It's very hot. It is a world of other people's mouths and of his own pockets, and both need sorely to be filled. And the worn spade moves again. In Ohio, a young farmer violates tradition and neglects to say, "I'll be switched." Instead,
I'll have to see about an alkalizer for that old strip. It's much too acid. The hydrogen ion potential is way out of sight.
the sky does not go unwatched. The waters are measured. The grain and the corn rise and are harvested. The soil surrenders to the farmer.
This is your standard of achievement, then? This is the measure of your culture and your civilization, which you esteem so well and consider worth saving from starvation? An ocean of coffee, channeling through your exalted system. Oh, these men. These worthy, worthy men.
I just thought I'd show you that we set some store in what is not necessity, by way of showing that there's plenty and to spare. You'd probably be interested in the more substantial things like beef. Consider the potato.
Oh, yes. The potato. That dirty stone in the muck for men to scrabble at. The potato. Humble tuber. Let me see. To that miserable fleshy food that Sir John Hawkins took back to England from the New World, wasn't it? Oh, I can't tell you about the potato. It saved an entire people from starvation once. The more's the pity.
See, here, you don't like people much, do you?
The world is overcrowded. Let us return to the noble potato, savior of a people.
All right. You tell me, and then I'll tell you.
Sir John brought potatoes back to England. That wasn't really their name, but the white man couldn't pronounce so impossible a word as batata, which was their real name. It was too much for man's highly advertised culture.
Go on.
The potatoes landed in England, whereupon the English king, full of kingly sanctimony, the milk of human kindness, had them dispatched to Ireland as food, and for further cultivation. The Irish, it appears, were starving to death. The potatoes saved them, and have continued to do so from time to time.
And the Americans produce enough potatoes to feed every one of the United Nations once we get the bottoms and the wheels to ship them on.
Potatoes did a great deal to relieve the siege of Stalingrad. I myself have no particular liking for potatoes.
You develop a taste for them in besieged cities.
Yes.
And they're not bad with onions and gravy, convoyed by steak, hamburger, leg of lamb, and some of that South American coffee. Remember?
I don't care for potatoes.
What do you care for?
I have 3 comrades.
Belong to the horsey set, too.
Yes.
If they're all like you, you can have them.
They are very much like me. I thank you for them.
Take a look around you from a train window in the Plain States, or from that saddle on your emaciated horse, mister, and see a heap of corn on the stalk. All kinds. Corn, maize, ranks and ranks of it. High, full, strong, full of starch, sugar, calories. The fields of waving grain, you may have heard about in that song. Wheat, then corn, wheat, and more corn. Planted in strips, planted with tricks and savvy by Americans who've learned how to get the best out of corn and the best out of the soil that corn grows on by rotating crops and rebuilding the earth that the corn breaks down. Corn, being the sinewy, substantial stuff that it is, it takes a lot out of the soil. But American farmers have what it takes, and they put it back again. And that's why there's enough of it to go around. It didn't just grow. It was out there and nursed and kidded and persuaded and browbeaten up to where it is today. It took know-how in the United States and Illinois, in Iowa and Nebraska. And it took know-how and savvy in Argentina, where the corn grows tall and the corn grows numerous. American farmers in the Americas had to whisper sweet something into those big golden ears of corn. They got corn. A whopping big lot of corn. Enough and more than enough to go around.
Americans. The Americas.
You find something gravely wrong with them?
I reserve my privilege to despise them. I hate the fat lushness of America.
That ain't fat, mister. That's muscle, evenly distributed.
Beautiful, spacious skies. Amber waves of grain.
That's right. Wheat. Bread wheat. Macaroni wheat. Plum wheat. Mm-hmm. Lots of wheat. And anything under 1 billion bushels a year is strictly bush league these days.
Mountain majesties. The fruited plain. Lyrical.
You don't care for oranges and vitamin C. You hate apples and pears and peaches. and you're not happy in the Santa Clara Valley, you'll probably think George Washington did exactly right when he chopped down the cherry tree.
I reserve my privilege to hate at my pleasure.
You certainly are having a lot of fun, whoever you are.
And I repeat, I hate America.
Will I find out why?
Perhaps. I should happen to lose my temper.
Maybe this will do it. I don't know. Bananas.
Bananas, yes, we have no bananas.
Bananas were brought up from Central America as an experiment. They were a smash hit overnight.
We are not amused.
Nuts.
I beg your pardon.
Nuts. One South American nut that you won't approve of, mister, because it's very well liked by plain people, is the cocoa. They make cocoa, chocolate, from the nibs of the cocoa bean.
Chocolate is one of the greatest items in the diet of the entire world.
As a delicacy.
As a delicacy for a decadent people that are better off dead.
As a food, then, for millions of people. As a source of quick energy in chocolate bars for soldiers. Purposely made unpalatable so that the soldiers won't eat them unless they really have to.
Civilization going really mad.
Americans alone drink 2,730,000,000 cups of chocolate every year.
Oh, how interesting.
Mm-hmm. Gives you the haunting idea that there must be an awful lot of cocoa in Brazil. Enough to count in the whirlpool. That's 170,625,000 gallons of chocolate.
Oh, hum.
Oh, hum indeed. But a fleet of super battleships, 16 in number and weighing over 40,000 tons, each could be floated on that much chocolate.
Could it indeed? Well.
It could. Manner of speaking, maybe it will. Maybe it will. Shredded coconut comes from down there, too, and we use the coconut shell in making gas masks. America is where someone once took a chance and ate the vegetable called a love apple and found out by the horn spoon it wasn't poisonous after all. We call it a tomato today, and its juice is a cheap and potent source of natural water-soluble vitamin. For a world that doesn't precisely reek with vitamins, where they're needed most urgently, most pathetically, and where by the grace of God and the watchfulness of a few tin cans and Corvettes, they're arriving, because we have a lot of tomatoes that we know what to do with. All over the Americas, tomatoes are numerous. There are no tomatoes in Europe that we don't send. They're as American as covered wagons and a short-left jab. Only more helpful.
Are you quite finished? Oh, champion of the groaning board. Is the rhapsody concluded? Have you sung enough of the Americas and their preoccupation with their own innards? Those of all the world? Have the men of ideals and ideas had enough to eat?
We haven't heard from Chile yet. These people out here are going to be interested in knowing, I think, that the famous Chili bean has a lot in common with all the tall, strapping men who are called Tex, because they've never been to Texas. Chili beans are most largely produced in the United States. Hence, they're called chili beans. Now, I know my unhappy friend here who rides a meager horse disapproves of this kind of talk, but I've stopped trying to understand a man who says he hates Americans.
I do.
Who says he hates all the Americas and the whole Western Hemisphere.
I do. Venomously. Bubonically.
You said you'd like to make some contributions to the discussion of the Americas as the provider.
After you, great champion of your people.
Cuba. And the Cubans. They're Americans, and you're at liberty not to like them either. And the Cubans are at liberty to be at liberty. Cuba is the world's sugar bowl. And in a way, sugar set Cuba free, even before 1898. The thick Cuban sugar cane is cut with a murderous-looking instrument called a machete. A machete, charged by those liberty-loving Cubans, was a terrible thing to see. So the Spaniards didn't stay around to see it. The Western Hemisphere can feed the world. It has quantity. It has infinite variety. The limits of both have never been tried. There is no philosophy beyond the facts. Others need, we have. We are richly able to share. We do share. we must share more. We shall. That is the simple progression. If it is broken, we are broken. For more and more we live for and by our fellows in this world. We can reenact the miracle of the loaves in modern dress so that it becomes the science of the loaves. Man does not live by bread alone, but without bread at all, he also perishes.
Challenge, challenge, challenge. You speak so much of golden grains that you yourself become mealy-mouthed.
All right. Out with it, then. What do you challenge, man on a lean horse?
That your precious man does not live by bread alone. Ah, he does. And by nothing else. He lives by the sweat of his brow, for the satisfaction of his stomach.
You put it more simply before. You said he lives to eat.
And nothing more. Exalted orator, notwithstanding the Lord of creatures, is himself a creature. Created only to experience a few brute senses, then to perish. Why are you trying to make it seem otherwise? To set a higher purpose for the miserable species. The grubbing nature of the beast is so apparent.
Just apparent to me.
Because you're one of them. A slug, a snail, a primitive. The turkey gobbling through the field of locusts. Concerned only and completely with eating and digestion. What do men do, these pretenders to divinity? They kneel and scrabble in the muck, planting and growing to eat. All other ends are nothing. Only eat. Feed the organism. Nourish the insistent cells. Then languish in a stupor of appeasement until hunger comes again. Then eat. Nourish oneself. Oh, it's unhappily necessary to nourish the earth first. The earth, made up of death since the world began. They dabble about in the mud, raking in foul things that send a stench to high heaven. Nod and smirk at each other. And say, we enrich the soil. This is a good thing that we do. No. I don't like anything you've said tonight. It's man's individual destiny, what becomes of him.
No. Hands-off policy. Isolationist, huh?
If man must perish, then he must. Why change things? He's marked for starvation. Let him starve and be done with it. It's not as important as you make him out to be. Not by far.
I disagree.
As I disagree with you. As I abhor the things you fancy. As I revile your amber waves of grain. And your fruited plains. And your babble and prattle of plenty. Your continents and their meddlesome fertility. I hate them. For they are wasteful and prodigal, contrary to the law of survival, of selection. I tell you, I hate America, for I am famine. I am the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. I am famine, and America is my enemy.
Orson Welles, usually heard at this time in the CBS series Hello, Americans, is unable to appear this evening due to illness. For tonight, Lud Gluskin and his orchestra present a program for the people of two continents. Ritmos de las Americas. The Argentine. Brazil. Martinique. Trinidad. Cuba. Mexico. Ritmos de las Americas. These are the exciting rhythms of the Americas, which you will hear tonight, played for you by Lud Gluskin and his orchestra, featuring the noted calypso singer Sir Lancelot, Cuba's favorite Miguelito Valdez, and your host for the evening, Mexico's singing star of the screen, Tito Guizar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really, no one can take the place of Senor Orson Welles on a program such as this dedicated to the Latin American countries. I can say that with conviction, because I was with Senor Welles in Brazil while he was on his tour through South America. He has told you something of this broadcast about the lovely island of Cuba, and he is right. Anyone who travels to Cuba carries away with him memories which live forever. He will always be able to see the twinkling lights of Havana. He will always hear the soft laughter of dark-eyed girls. And back of it all, there will be music, the rhythm of the Americas, the rhythm of a bolero song that comes right from the heart. Very nice, Senor Gluskin. A few weeks ago, mi amigo Orson Welles told you about the Calypso singers of Trinidad. On that same program, he introduced one of those singers. He's very famous. His name is Sir Lancelot. Tonight, we are very happy to have him back to sing for us again. Before we hear your song, Sir Lancelot, I wish you could tell us how calypso singing began in Trinidad.
Well, Tito, it probably began when somebody found out that a story could be told as well as sung. That's what calypso singing is, a story that's told in a song.
Are the stories always about love and romance?
Oh, no. They can be about anything. Legends, history, sometimes love. Sometimes even about the news. You know, Tito, here in the United States, there's a calypso song.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about what the Americans would do if they were in Berlin.
I'm afraid I don't follow you. What is the title of the song?
Right in the Führer's Face.
I remember now. A very lovely ballad. Now, Americans, here is Sir Lancelot, the calypso singer from Trinidad with, what's your song?
It's a little something commemorating the treacherous attack on Pearl Harbor. Arise, arise, ye sons of America, arise. Arise, arise, ye sons of America, arise. Listen to the sound of the bugle call. Your Uncle Sam needs you one and all, and he means to fight for the right to live in dignity, justice, and liberty. It was on the morning of December 7 when the evil messengers of this Son of Heaven attacked Pearl Harbor without a cause, precipitating this cruelest of wars. But that mad action they will regret. Believe me, friends, ain't seen nothing yet. For we mean to fight for the right to live in dignity, justice, and liberty. Now in the words of our great president, the illustrious head of this government, that most cruel and dastardly crime will be repaid 1,000 times, till those cantankerous beasts of prey are apprehended and brought to bay. For we mean to fight for the right to live in dignity, justice, and liberty. Indeed, my friends, it's a wholesome sight as we stand with our allies in this glorious fight. Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, the Netherlands, and our motherland, Russia and China, we're proud to add. Don't forget to mention La Trinidad, for we mean to fight for the right to live in dignity, justice, and liberty. Oh boy. Oh. Now as to the outcome, we have no fear, neither by land, nor sea, nor by air. Remember gallant MacArthur's stand on the historic peninsula. At Bataan, Admiral Nimitz and Captain Kelly, their deeds will live for eternity by land, air, and sea. We shall win the victory most assuredly.
I would like to come back to Trinidad. I was there, you know.
Thank you.
A lovely place. Well, if tonight you were dancing in Rio de Janeiro, that splendid city of Brazil, you would be sure to hear a romantic samba called Aquarela do Brasil, which I had the pleasure to introduce to American audiences 2 years ago. Right now, it is probably the most popular Latin American song in all the Americas. Maestro Lud Gloskin plays it for you. Very, very nice, Senor Lord. Very nice. In Cuba, when the bright stars hang over to the gray sugar plantations, the native workers sing their song. Their voices come from their hearts, and the night is filled with a melody that is haunting and tender, with a rhythm that is savage and compelling. It is one of these Cuban songs that Miguelito Valdez is about to sing for you. It is called Babaloo.
Babaloo, 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 aye, Babaloo, aye. Están empezando los velorios, ay, ¿qué le hacemos a Babaloo? Dame 17 velas. Es pa' ponerlo en coro. Dame un cabo de tabaco mayén y un jarrito de aguardiente. Dame un poco de dinero mayén pa' que no de la muerte. Yo quiero pedir ay, que mi negra me quiera, que tenga dinero y que no se jade. Y yo le quiero pedir a papá Babalú, y una negra me importa como. Es que no tengo coro negro, es pa' que no se fuera. Babalú, Babalú, ay, mamá. Papa, Babalú, ay, papá. Papa, kini, Babalú, papá. Mamá, mira mamita, recuerda cuando que queremos decir yo te digo mamá que llamo como tú con tu somarina me conoce mi mar su puta se pega luego mi por su cabrón pajátaro si viene cayendo cuenta muerto poeta si viene cayendo su equipo me toco si viene cayendo el montón yo pato con tres años por mucho te comienza a me cagar a la mamá que si mañana yo me muero mamá que no me haga cosa buena por eso también me invita a la pequeña como mamá la más faca priquio Babalú, ay, mamá. Babalú, ay,
Muy bueno, Miguelito, muy bueno. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to sing for you a song which pictures my homeland, Mexico. For there are so many songs, and there is so little time. I will take my guitar and just sing. Quiero que vivas solo para mí y que tú vayas por donde yo voy para que mi alma sea no más de ti. Bésame con frenesí, dame la luz que tiene tu mirar y la ansiedad que entre tus labios vi, esa locura de vivir y amar, que es más que amor frenesí, que es más que amor frenesí. Es más que amor, frenesí. Guadalajara, 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 Guadalajara. Tienes el alma de provinciana, hueles a limpio, rosa temprana. A verde jade fresca del río, son mis palomos tu caserío. Guadalajara, Guadalajara, hueles a pura tierra mojada. Ay, colomitos lejanos. Inolvidables, inolvidables como las tardes en que la lluvia desde la loma irnos así hasta Zapopan. Y ay, ay, ay. Guadalajara, allá en el rancho grande, allá donde viví. Y había una rancherita que alegre me decía, y pues qué te decía manito, te voy a hacer tus calzones, ¿cómo?
como los que usa el ranchero ceboreando, te los comienzo de lana y luego te los acabo de cuero. Allá en el rancho grande, allá donde vivía, había una rancherita que alegre me decía, y pues, ¿qué te decía, maldito, que pasen para adentro, que estoy solito? Which means in English, okay. Ay, ay,
kalambu ayuhe. Bambu kalambu bambu he. Bambu kalambu ayuhe. Y va por la tierra el guate, cantando su canto vendré. Bambu kalambu bambu he. Bambu kalambu ayuhe. Kim bang bang, temblará su abuela el negro colibrí. Kim bang bang. Elefante, mono y carabali, kimbamba, 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 oh,
Very good, Lud Gluskin. And now it's time to say hasta la vista. This is Tito Rizal saying good night, Americans.
Our orchestra was conducted by Lud Gluskin. Next week, Orson Welles will return on another broadcast of Hello, Americans from Hollywood. Dick Joy speaking. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
This is Truman Bradley. Due to illness, Mr. Orson Welles, usually heard at this time in the CBS series Hello, Americans, is unable to appear. For tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System presents Ritmos de las Americas. The Argentine, Brazil, Martinique, Trinidad, Cuba, Mexico, Ritmos de las Americas. These are the stirring, the romantic rhythms of the Americas, which you will hear tonight. Played for you by Lud Gluskin and his orchestra. Sung for you by Diana Gale. Cuba's popular singing star, Miguelito Valdez, and featuring the internationally known South American singing star, Carlos Ramirez. In the gay cafes of Latin America, there is always music. Music which sends its enticing rhythm into the warm tropic night, beckoning those who would dance. The whisper of the maracas, the soft rhythmic beat of the drums. Who among a people to whom music and dancing are the best part of life could resist such an invitation? Especially when the music says, "Come dance the samba, oh say Don Jose." Often in the songs of Latin America, there is the haunting melody of a native chant, blended with a rhythm born in the heart of a jungle drum. With a bit of imagination, you can hear behind the words in the music the veiled magic of the tropics of old, a mysterious theme, strange and exciting. Listen as Miguelito Valdez sings Taboo.
De la África lejana, llena mi pecho de candela. Alma de la África añorada, el río caudaloso, el cielo azul. Allí, si negro mira la hembra blanca, el chango quita toda la confianza, las cosas selvas primitivas de dioses misteriosos y de fiel. Ifa, o patalava chango y yemaya. Ifa, o patalava chango y yemaya.
confianza. Las cosas, selvas primitivas de Dios, de misteriosos y de fiel. Ochun, hey, y fa, o batalaba chango y yemaya. Ochun, y fa, o batalaba chango y yemaya. Tabu, tabu, tabu.
Of all the composers of Latin American music, undoubtedly the greatest is Lacuna. More than any other interpreter of the spirit of the southern countries, he has captured the depth of feeling and the warmth of emotion which characterizes the people. Here is one of the loveliest of the Lacuna compositions, Andalusia. Now, our parade of the rhythms of the Americas brings to the microphone the favorite South American ambassador of songs, Carlos Ramirez. You have heard him many times on recordings and radio, and we're sure you'll be hearing and seeing more of him in the future as he begins his American motion picture career. From his native country of Colombia, by way of New York, Carlos Ramirez comes to this program tonight to sing Curame.
Todos dicen que es mentira que te quiero, porque nunca me habían visto enamorado. Yo te juro que yo mismo no comprendo el por qué tu mirar me ha fascinado. Cuando estoy cerca de ti yo estoy contento. No quisiera que de nadie te acordaras. Tengo celos hasta de mi pensamiento que puedan recordarte otra ilusión amada. Júrame que aunque pase mucho tiempo no olvidarás el momento en que yo te conocí. Mírame, pues no hay nada más profundo ni más grande en este mundo que el cariño que te di. Bésame con un beso enamorado, como nadie me ha besado desde el día en que nací. Quiéreme hasta la locura. Así sabrás la amargura que estoy sufriendo por ti.
Fiesta time in Mexico. Time for music and dancing invariably brings out the enchanting rhythm of the bolero, and among these, the lovely incertidumbre, uncertainty. Wherever there are people gathered, in the green, palm-lined parks of Rio de Janeiro, in the white squares of Buenos Aires, in the colorful streets of Panama or Havana, you may hear the song that is close to the hearts of all Latin Americans. Traditional, treasured down through the years, it is the lovely Granada. In the voice of Carlos Ramirez, Granada is at its best. He sings it for you now.
Cantar se vuelve gitano cuando es para ti. Mi cantor hecho de fantasía. Mi cantor flor de melancolía. Tierra ensangrentada en tardes de toro, mujer que conserva el embrujo de los ojos moros, de sueño rebelde gitana cubierta de flores, y beso tu boca de grana, jugosa manzana que me habla de amor. Granada, Manola cantada en coplas preciosas. No tengo otra cosa que darte que un ramo de que le dieran marco a la Virgen Morena. Granada, tu tierra está llena de lindas mujeres de sangre y de sol.
Naturally, in those Americas where the art of romance is regarded so highly, there are many love songs. Songs appealing and tender. Serenades for a voice and a guitar and hearts that are young. Here is a love song which came up across the Caribbean and captured the fancy of North America under the title of Yours. Listen to it now in the words of two continents, with music as it is played on the lands to the south. Quiéreme mucho. Voices are those of Diana Gale and Miguelito Valdez.
till the stars have no glory. Yours till the birds fail to sing. Yours to the end of life's story. This pledge to you, dear, I bring. Yours in the gray of December. Here or on far distant shore. I've never loved anyone the way I love you. How could I, when I was born to be just yours?
Cuando se quiere de veras, como te quiero yo a ti, es imposible mi cielo tan separado. Cuando se quiere de veras, como te quiero yo a ti, es imposible mi cielo tan separado, tan separado.
Ladies and gentlemen, these have been the Rhythms of the Americas, played for you by Lud Gluskin and his orchestra, with songs by the popular Cuban personality of song, Miguelito Valdez, and featuring the voice of Carlos Ramirez, who appeared this evening through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios. Orson Welles will return in the CBS series, Hello, Americans, next week at this same time. This is Truman Bradley. Thank you. Good night.
This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Hello, Americans. This is Orson Welles. A year ago, I stood before this same CBS microphone. in this same studio and said goodbye to you for the Mercury. Here was our farewell. It is important for the peoples of this hemisphere to get better acquainted, and the Mercury has been given the job of helping out with the introduction. Tomorrow we leave for South America. That was a year ago. Since then, we've made motion pictures in Brazil and Mexico and visited all the American republics, gathering material and writing the scripts for these broadcasts. Now it's time to say goodbye again. We're going on with the job. The Mercury is still working for the coordinator of Inter-American Affairs. Movies and plays, and later we hope more radio. We're going to go on trying to help out with the introduction. Senor and Senora America, we want you to shake hands with Mr. and Mrs. America. Stories and music, poetry and jokes. All the mediums we can work in, all the languages we know, are obediently yours in the service of a big idea called Pan-Americanism. Big idea and also a big word. I wish it weren't. It ought to be just as easy to say Pan-Americanism as it is to understand it. My own contact with Pan-Americanism began with a delicately filigreed souvenir spoon from the Pan American Exposition, clearly labeled sterling silver. At the inquisitive age of 7, I found this tiny spoon among my grandmother's jealously guarded treasures in the old glass reliquary in the living room, along with a dance program which, curiously enough, did not have my grandfather's name in it, and the prescription for an asthma remedy.
Orson, are you meddling in my things again?
Even as a child, I recognized the merit of diversion as a method of defense. So I promptly asked, "What does Pan-Americanism mean, Grandma?" As far as I'd been able to figure it out from the engraved map in the bowl of the spoon, the narrow strip of Central America must be the handle for some fantastic two-headed frying pan.
Your grandfather's idea of a wedding anniversary was always to traipse off to an exposition.
Patiently or stubbornly, perhaps, I asked again, "But what does Pan-American mean, Grandma?" She seemed puzzled as she looked at me through the upper half of her glasses.
Pan-American means the Monroe Doctrine or something. Something to do with us and those people down Panama way, I suppose. They showed off a display of how they make blankets down there. And as nice colors as I ever did see.
A little incomplete, perhaps, but somehow it made me feel friendly toward those people down Panama way. Their bright colors. I learned only a little more of our southern neighbors in school. Brazil. The area of Brazil is 3,285,316 square miles. The republic has a population of
40,272,650.
In school, I learned that the people to the south of us included many races. Portuguese, Italian, Spanish, German, Russian, Negro, Indian, and some Irish. They're much like our own classroom.
Miranda? Fantasy? Garcia? O'Leary?
Present.
Smith?
Present.
Wells?
Present and so forth.
We will all face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It was later, much later, that I learned about the tango. I went to the movies, read books. I was told of dark-eyed senoritas, of pampas moons, gauchos, and wild palomino ponies. Then I learned the rumba. I heard about Latin lovers and the barbarous jungles, fiestas, bandits, revolutions, and tamales, hot tamales. Somehow the feeling of friendliness I'd known as a child escaped me. I was a gringo, and my friends from down Panama way were Latins, A gulf wider and deeper than the Rio Grande separated me from my neighbors. Them from me. If I can only begin to tell you tonight how shallow and narrow that gulf really is, I will have accomplished what it took me a journey through our entire hemisphere to realize.
Como vai você, José? Então, como vai passando sua senhora e crianças? O que é que você pensa a respeito das últimas notícias enviadas de Casablanca, hein?
You know what that means? It means, hello, Joe, what do you know? How's the wife and kids? And what do you think of the news from Casablanca?
Tú sabes, chiquito, que hay una guerra y tengo que luchar. Espéreme.
That's the way a Mexican boy says, listen, sweetheart, I got to enlist. You understand. Wait for me. That was the dark-eyed senorita he was talking to, and that other was your Latin lover. It's the sameness I'm talking about now. Sameness in spite of difference. Different sounds to the words. But the same idea. Different colors, but the same spirit. Different churches, but the same faith. Different liquor, but the same hangover. Different jokes, but the same laughter. Different nations. The same humanity. Thank God for the differences, because it's out of those differences that culture grows, and grows big in all directions at once. Thank God for the southern drawl and the Yankee twang. Thank God for samba and swing, for baseball and bullfights, for the poets and the painters, for Mexico's Orozco, for Portinari of Brazil, Queiroz of Argentina. Thank God for Walt Disney and Cantinflas, El Gran Otelo, Carmen Miranda. Thank God for Chavez and Villa-Lobos and 1,000 unknown troubadours who improvised the people's songs. Thank God for Mark Twain and Mickey Rooney and all the others, living and dead, whose different voices are heard in our hemisphere, voices whose eternal sameness is contained in the tremendous proposition that all men are created equal. The very foundation of peace on earth is understanding between men. Strong magic acknowledging no time and space. The understanding that comes with knowledge is a perfect time machine. You can twist the dial of history and listen in wherever you like. For instance, let's say we want to tune in on the city of Washington, D.C., the year 1816.
Our demand to be heard.
Will the senator yield to the gentleman from Kentucky?
John Randolph has been ridiculing a junior senator by the name of Henry Clay, who spoke for a diplomatic mission to South America.
Mr. Clay's enthusiasm is a fervor recently acquired in Europe. A spirit which is out of place in the United States of America. The differences between the American nations are too great, socially, economically, and politically.
The holdouts say those same things today. But the differences they talk about are just the ones you'll find in any of our own large cities. The people seem to get along all right. Any New York subway car is an international express. No one's really killed in the rush.
Pan-Americanism is an unnatural movement.
Mr. President.
I recognize Senator Sharp of Kentucky.
Mr. President, I wonder how many colleagues can be the spectators of a struggle for liberty and independence by any portion of the human family and feel indifferent of the result.
Will the senator yield?
The senator will gladly yield to Henry Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Mr. President, it was the doctrine of kings that man was too ignorant to govern himself.
It was the doctrine of kings that man was too ignorant to govern himself.
Bolivar speaking. Simon Bolivar in South America, the liberator. He stands framed against the clean, cold sky as he reads to his men.
It was the doctrine of kings that man was too ignorant to govern himself. I maintain that an oppressed people are authorized whenever they can to rise and break their fetters. Those are the words I bring you from a senator of the United States Congress, Henry Clay.
The wind blew across the mountains with the sound of Spanish cannon and snapped the black streamer which flew from Bolivar's lance. The men shifted their weight, watching the emblem on the streamer, a skull and bones, with the words of Patrick Henry, liberty or death.
My friends, these words from our neighbor to the north give final assurance that we do not fight in vain. America, already I see it serve as a bond, as center, as emporium to the human family. May God grant that we may install a Congress here to study the high interest of peace and war with the other nations of the world.
The roots of Pan-Americanism lie buried with Bolivar deep in the rich, fertile soil he loved and freed. Let's turn the dial of history again, past the failure of Bolivar's assembly at Panama, 1826, past the narrow national errors and misinterpretations of the Monroe Doctrine. Let's tune in on the most spectacular year, 1889, Washington, D.C. October 2nd, 1889.
I call to order the first Pan-American Conference. The scope and objective of this conference is consultative and rudimentary only. The conference will be wholly without power to...
And so it began, this Pan-American partnership, weak, uncertain, a newborn infant. And across the sea in Austria, in the same year of our Lord, 1889...
Fine boy, Liebchen, a fine boy. Look how he holds his head up already. He'll make his mark, this boy will. You'll be proud to have delivered this child, Herr Doctor.
Well, I find it better to disclaim any credit, good or bad, for the human beings I bring into the world, Herr Schickelgruber.
1889. The birth date of two infants who were to grow into mortal enemies, Pan-Americanism and Adolf Hitler, née Schickelgruber. History indulges such contradictions. Take, for example, another year, 1933. Now we're in a small clay hut somewhere in South America. Jose tries to tune his new radio while his wife prepares food against the return of their son, who helps build radios in the new radio factory.
For such a price, it's a fine new radio.
I'm listening to the inaugural address of the 32nd President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
In the field of world policy, I would dedicate this nation to the policy of the good neighbor.
Good evening, Father.
The neighbor who resolutely respects himself, and because he does so, respects the rights of others. The neighbor who respects his obligations and respects the sanctity of his agreement in and with a world of neighbors.
And in answer to the public of the Jew Franklin Roosevelt, I quote the words of Germany's new leader. Whoever would really wish from his heart for the victory of the pacifist conception of this world must devote himself by every means to the conquest of the world by the Germans.
Warren, there is something strange about this radio.
Oh, no, they're all like that. Senor Schmidt at the factory told us it's because we're closer to Germany.
Don't worry, Juan has learned. Today he works in another factory and he's a member of the Latin American Confederation of Workers. I'd like you to hear what Vicente Lombardo Toledano, the head of the Confederation, told me in Mexico.
We have joined the United States and the other people fighting in the Orient and in Europe against Hitler and accomplices. There can be only two attitudes, against Hitler or in favor of Hitler. It is absurd to speak of neutrality because the neutral is but an ambushed fascist, cynical and cowardly.
Today, the peoples of two great continents are fighting shoulder to shoulder. 21 nations of the Americas marching to the same battle hymn. And we didn't come together by a strange coincidence. And it wasn't just luck. And it wasn't an accident. We men and women of the Americas came together out of a common heritage, a tradition planted 100 years deep. We were born out of revolution, all 21 of us. And we cut our teeth on a Declaration of Independence. Today we're still fighting the same fight. Good neighbors thrown together to protect their homes, that's the picture. People, just plain people. Plenty of personal problems going their own way, never getting to know their neighbors except for a good morning and a nice day, isn't it? Lots of us never knew that man who's the air raid warden till he dropped in to look over the house one evening about a year ago. And it's the same way with nations. Friendly, know each other's names. That's about all. Then comes the crisis. A fire, an air raid alert. And over a single night, acquaintances become friends. Neighbors become allies and comrades in arms. Sometimes it doesn't take a crisis. I remember in Mexico seeing a young girl with a group of tourists in the United States. She was so carried away by a passion for flowers that she found herself without enough centavos to pay for the orchids, gardenias, and carnations she'd selected. I was asked to interpret, and it was only after I'd pushed through the group of tourists that I saw the face of the little flower girl. She smiled such a smile as I will never forget. It was as though she had been confronted with a miracle. I found she understood the situation.
Si le gustan guarias, niña.
Literally translated, the young lady says, if you like them, keep them, little one.
But she can't afford.
The gringa tried to give the flowers back, but the Indian girl would have no part of it. She was genuinely delighted to find the gringa had a heart like herself, and that she loved her flowers. Flowers of Mexico.
Here. Ask her to take this scarf.
But before I could speak, the Indian girl had refused.
No, niña. Es un regalo.
When I told the gringa the flowers were a gift, she understood. I think we all understood. The paisanita just discovered that gringos have souls, that they're human beings, that nothing stands between them and us. America, all of it. That big two-headed frying pan, my grandmother's souvenir spoon. America's recognizing its unity of purpose. Sometimes slowly out of the necessity of crisis, more often through the recognition of a common destiny. Not the manifest destiny of Yankee imperialism and gringo superiority, but the destiny conceived by Bolivar, a great cultural and economic, political and intellectual partnership of equal nations. On the docks of Baltimore and New York, the longshoremen speak with surprise of a new and startling phenomenon.
I don't get it, Pop. What is all this stuff?
It's your factory, that's what it is, son.
You mean I'm lifting a whole blasted factory?
That's right, son, a whole blasted factory. From conveyor belts to time clocks. Last month, the first of some 500 factories we weren't using for the war were shipped out of Baltimore for Latin America. That's the good neighbor policy. That's inter-American democracy, as my good friend Luis Quintanilla, the Mexican ambassador to the Soviet Union, sees it.
Not only the formal, theoretical, political democracy of our several constitutions, but the natural, tangible economic democracy in our people's way of living.
Pan-Americanism submits that being a nation is a dignity, a trust, a responsibility. That being a nation is a highly professional matter involving the highest professional ethics. Professional people don't have rivals or competitors, but colleagues. Each individual stands to gain by the good professional and ethical conduct of every other individual in the society. Colleagues understand the necessity of not resorting to brass knuckles as instruments of policy.
Well, what do they settle their arguments with, then?
What do you do if someone sues your friend? Beat his brains out?
No. I get a lawyer or leave town.
Nations can't leave town. So, in a manner of speaking, they get a lawyer. Several South American disputes have been settled by mediation, arbitration, and conciliation. And that's only the beginning. Science and knowledge are breaking through the barriers of time and space. Only a short while ago, our president and commander-in-chief conferred with Winston Churchill in North Africa. Today, he's in Brazil. Men are learning to think in 3 dimensions. At long last, our understanding can encompass the words of Abraham Lincoln.
The strongest tie of human sympathy, apart from the family relationship, is that uniting the workers of all nations, tongues, and kindred.
Out of and beyond the concept of Pan-Americanism has grown the organized form of world democracy, the United Nations. Out of the meeting at Casablanca, we have renewed our solemn pledge to fight this war to ultimate total victory. And it will follow by the simple logic of historic elimination that when we've destroyed those who advocate a world order of slavery, poverty, and ignorance, we will be one step nearer the defeat of slavery, poverty, and ignorance themselves. Over the Americas, over the continents and waters of the Western world, watches a spirit.
I will not go back.
Out of the mists of time, the spirit came. In the beginning, there was universal ooze, and monsters roamed the uncertain earth. Incredible reptiles haunted the world, and there was no man.
Then they died. Great reptiles had their dim, their mighty day, and died. Then came the jungles. I was a foul and hairy thing, monstrous and witless life, till something happened. I lifted myself on my knuckles, brute that I was, trying to stand, lifting myself on my wrists, pushing myself up on my knuckles.
And this took 1,000,000 years or more.
But I stood up. I stood, and I walked erect.
The world was hostile. The jungle was close at the back of the creature that dared to be more than creature. The jungle stood ready to take back its own.
I will not go back.
So he stands, this man spirit, watching over the continents, anxious of his destiny. He broods and waits for some proof that man can live in peace, proof that mankind can repudiate the doctrine of might and the brute rule by claw and fang, talon and beak. The spirit of man waits to learn if the jungle is leveled, or if it still lives rankly, living and breathing and waiting to take back its own. Man may stand and look at the sun, or he may squat on his haunches again and howl at the moon.
I am man. I have seen the summits to which men may lift themselves. I have survived Babylon, Nineveh, and Tyre. I have survived the flooding Nile and the rising and the falling of the continents. My flint and my bronze and my bones are scattered over the world throughout time. I have been kin to Plato, to Socrates, to Michelangelo, Galileo, Raphael, Shakespeare. Confucius has taught his simple art of goodness. Buddha has rested beneath his tree. Muhammad has journeyed to the mountain in my time. The Nazarene has mounted to Golgotha and higher. I am man. I have drawn nearer to it on recent wings. If I fly, I compute. I reason and have rules of logic. I sing, communicate. I speak and write my speeches upon space and void. I look up at the sun. I am man. I will not go back.
This perhaps is our last chance. Here in the West, our chance is for a perfect and a bloodless victory. Pan-Americanism is a name for that victory. Not a Pan-Americanism of the alarmed moment, looking only for temporary safety in numbers. Not an expedient for the advantage of the big fellow nation or the imperialist. Not a cynic or heads I win, tails you lose Pan-Americanism and the devil take the hindmost. But a union formed in the conviction that this is it. That the moment is urgent. And the wrong road leads back to the jungle. All the world looks to half the world for a way to peace. And we are that half of the world. We are charged with giving that we may receive. America, the mother of republics, may yield magnificently once more, or go forever barren. I asked our Vice President, Henry A. Wallace, to write us a message for broadcasting. Here it is. The new democracy looks to the future, not to the past. It looks to the rich soil and bright sunshine of America for strength. It does not exclude the old world, but it will develop its own strength to help the old world. The spirit of man stands watch upon the western continent.
I have come this far. I will not go back.
So be it. We will see. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our time's up. The series is over. The Mercury Theater and the Office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs extends sincerest thanks to the Columbia Broadcasting System for making these programs possible. Your obedient servant thanks Lucien Marowek for his music and Vlad Gluskin for conducting it. Finally, he'd like to thank you for listening and for the interest you've shown in what we've had to talk about. We very much hope to be able to come back to the air again soon. Until then, we remain, as always, obediently yours. Hasta luego, hasta luego. Good night, Americans.
You have been listening to the concluding program in a series about the Other Americas, in which the Columbia Broadcasting System has presented Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater. The Columbia Broadcasting System is the originator of South America's network of stations, La Cadena de las Americas. In the Southern Hemisphere, as well as in this hemisphere, CBS provides daily programs of news, entertainment, and recreation to bring about a closer understanding among Americans everywhere. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Well, that's it of Orson Welles' Hello Americans. We will have more of the tribute to Orson Welles next week and for the rest of June. Airchecks is a 3-hour podcast that is uploaded every Saturday as well as played on the K-Tai radio network every Sunday. See you next time on the same time and same channel.